Whole Cake Island is an exceptional arc. There is a lot put into it, from the environments to the songs to the characters. It feels as if One Piece spared no expense in bringing this arc to life. I also personally believe the art for Whole Cake Island was some of Oda's best. The Alice in Wonderland inspiration's extremely prominent as we follow Sanji down this hellish rabbit hole. Everything ties together so smoothly in this arc, having the story depth of Dressrosa while including the fantastic flow of Water 7. But what I think is the biggest achievement of this arc is the heavy-hitting themes and the perfect integration of them. The bright colors of this world and the fantasy foodland completely juxtaposes the dark themes, used as a sweet layer on top while following Sanji through his depressing journey within this arc. We even have a somewhat comedic moment of Sanji telling the singing objects to shut up. His existence in Whole Cake Island completely out of place to emphasize just how miserable he is. In fact, it's ironic, considering he's always been a lover of fairy tales and fables. He has this idea of a fairy tale prince, one we've seen quite a few times within One Piece, and it's possibly due to the reality of the kind of prince he actually is. He's a Vinsmoke, sharing the blood with that of assassins, and now, being presented in this fictitious world, we see just how disconnected from this fantasy he truly is. It shows with his constant downcast expression, the mute colours, red cape aside, of his royal wear, and even the greyness of the Joma castle. There's no rose-coloured fantasy here, no sparkly prince riding on a white stallion, and it's all due to the awful reality of the blood he shares with the Vinsmoke line. And here we truly see the themes of Whole Cake Island and how they so flawlessly incorporate into each and every character established in this arc, with Sanji having the misfortune of being in the spotlight, these themes being blood family, family abuse, and the curse of family ties. Whole Cake Island is extremely prevalent in showing these ideas, using each new character introduced as an example of the negatives of blood family, from Sanji to Pudding to Katakuri. No one is exempt from the burden of the blood that runs through their veins. To look into this properly and to dissect each character with their connection to these themes, we must separate the two families we are presented with. These families, of course, being the Charlottes and the Vinsmokes. But before we get into that, it's sponsor time. While we cannot all be pirates in our current day and age, we can still be pirates online, and we can do that safely with Atlas VPN. If you're not a tech nerd like me and have no idea what a VPN is, a VPN makes it so all your internet searches, browsing, and history is completely protected. It's sure to hide your IP address and it keeps you safe from spying, especially from the pesky FBI agent in your computer who's watching you look up Zoro's big fat boobies as we speak. But Atlas VPN isn't just a VPN, it also protects you from pop-up ads and malicious malware. It can also give you access to any country's version of Netflix or Disney Plus. I mentioned Disney Plus specifically because did you guys know that the entirety of Bleach is on Australian Disney Plus? And with Atlas, you, yes, you, can take advantage of Atlas's huge discount. You can get a 3-year subscription from $1.99 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Even better than that, if you use my link in the description below, you get an 82% discount for premium subscription. Snatch that deal while it's hot, and thank you so much Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. I won't let you down. Alright. Let's dive into the horrors of the themes of Whole Cake Island. I feel I should state there will be an emphasis on the topic of family abuse within this video, but it won't get visually heavy by any means and it's all entirely fictional. However, if that topic is too heavy for you, then the warning's there. From the get-go, it is immediately established what this arc is going to entail with the reveal of Sanji's last name alone. Beige showing us a wedding invitation of the unification of the two families. We know nothing about either family, only knowing that Big Mum is an emperor of the seas while Sanji felt it necessary to hide his blood origins. And it's apparent upon first meeting that both families hold a history of abuse. We'll push the Vinsmokes aside for now, since Sanji being the main source of interest lends the Vinsmokes to more discussion. And we'll look into the horrors of the Charlotte family. The main connection between the Charlottes and the Vinsmokes is their abusive natures. Even though Big Mum wanted a large family, her selfish selfishness as a person has left both mental and physical scars on her children. Putting Chiffon aside, Big Mom's main form of abuse is attacking her children mentally. Big Mom is focused on the visual aspects of her children, Pudding being the biggest victim in this regard. From a young age, she calls her own daughter ugly, and Pudding becomes self-conscious of her third eye because of it. I don't know if it was completely intentional on Oda's part, but there are certainly many cases in reality of mothers targeting the physical appearance of their daughters. It's for this reason many feel a strong connection to Pudding, and Pudding's personality shaping into that of an aggressive, two-faced liar was only inevitable. It's why whenever Pudding's saying anything crude or sinister, we see her third eye. She's both physically and metaphorically hiding her true self due to her mother's abuse. And it doesn't help that her own siblings and townsfolk alike also called her a monster for her third eye. After all, her mother ran this island. If she wanted to punish them for their bullying, she could have easily done so. But she saw no reason to help Pudding, and only reinforced the idea that Pudding's third eye made her hideous and disgusting. From Pudding's backstory, we discover how she had to fend for herself, how she became so violent and hostile towards those around her, and became so good at acting to receive her mother's praise. The long-lasting effects on Pudding's psyche due to Big Mom's abuse is not only visible but severe, and the scene of Sanji hearing her through the window showcases her lack of empathy. Pudding said some horrible things at this point, the vileness of her true character on full display with her eye uncovered, and it's understandable why a lot of people don't like Pudding from this moment. After all, she's belittling Sanji's very deep insecurities, completely making fun of Sanji's own abuse and outright laughing about it. But while this isn't an excuse for those actions, I think it's important to remember here that Pudding fully believed Sanji would have found her eye and her true self ugly. Big Mom had instilled within Pudding that everyone would hate her third eye, that she'd find no care or love due to the monster she made her believe she is. So how could Pudding not project the monster she was forced to be? She had gone through her own abuse and saw everyone around her as a threat. It feels very clear to me that she became this monster to protect herself from ever being harmed or mentally hurt again, which is why she completely broke down with Sanji's words.
いい子だ。そのまま。
なんて美しい瞳だ。
Big Mom had broken this poor girl to the point that this one act of kindness made her collapse. For her whole life, she saw herself as a freak, and realized at this point that she wasn't the monster her mother made her believe, nor the monster she ever wanted to be. Her crying from Sanji saying she's beautiful alone is a testament to just how much pain she had gone through, and the fact she experiences more kindness from this near stranger than from her own mother is heartbreaking. This is why I personally can't ever hate Pudding, and it's why she begins to reflect and change directly after this moment. However, Pudding doesn't seem to know how to show affection in a healthy way, since she continues to outright bully and tease Sanji when trying to compliment him, and honestly, it's pretty realistic.
それはどうかしら。確かにケーキはできたけど、あんたの仲間たちもう死んでるかもよ。仮に生きててもママがケーキを気に入るとは限らない。
Pudding isn't immediately going to know how to show empathy or care. She's lived her entire life putting up countless walls, so she finds it difficult to navigate liking someone. And these are the long-lasting effects of Big Mom's abuse that I am talking about. Because more than just the abuse itself, Whole Cake Island includes the repercussions on a person from such abuse. Big Mom clearly has a prejudice against any child she has who shows undesirable features. From Chiffon's abuse due to her looking like Lola, to Brûlé eternally wearing a wedding dress, implying Big Mom never married her off due to her scarred face. It's also disturbing seeing Big Mom's behavior in Wano, feeling like she needs to protect Otama due to her young age until Otama goes against her word. It seems Big Mom loves her children only when they do as she says, but she does not hesitate to be violent or cruel when they go against her word. She mentally manipulates her her children to be faithful to her, with the added layer of blood relation making them want to feel worthy to their own mother. This is where Katakuri comes in. His story relies less on the abuse received from Big Mom and the pressure of family ties. Due to Katakuri being part of a large family and having a face deformity himself, he was the target of harassment amongst other children. While they couldn't target Katakuri specifically because of how strong he was, they targeted his sister, Brûlé. From that point, Katakuri had to cage his true self to protect his family. I discuss his reveal of his true nature during his battle with Luffy in my Katakuri video, and we're shown his duty to family is a burden to his life. He holds no malice for the Straw Hats, especially not towards Luffy. Yet the fear of what will happen to his family completely cages him. He's become a general thanks to his act, his advanced observation haki unlocked with the emotionless demeanor he's had to put on, and his whole life has been spent being something he's not because of family ties. Katakuri was not abused in the traditional sense, not with Big Mom verbally tormenting him, nor by physical means, but the protection she refused to give him and his siblings is definitely a factor here. Big Mom tends to make her kids fight for themselves, seeing them more as her army and crew than her children, and consistently uses them as pawns for greater means with her piracy, such as her disowning Lola because Lola didn't want to marry the man Big Mom had picked out for her. Instead of being understanding in Lola's apprehensiveness, she began to push Lola to the point that she ran away. Chiffon was then physically abused by her mother, and is the only Charlotte child we know of that has wanted to completely disconnect herself from Big Mom. The saddest part here, and one we see with Katakuri, Lola, and Pudding, is they all have the belief Big Mom does actually care for them as her children. Lola still has the idea that because she's a Charlotte, Big Mom will protect her and her friends. But the truth is revealed to us in Whole Cake Island that Big Mom wants absolutely nothing to do with her. Meanwhile, Pudding and Katakuri are totally praised by Big Mom, only because they are useful. It's especially interesting to me that the only time Katakuri and Pudding go against Big Mom's word, Pudding to help Sanji and Katakuri to allow Luffy to get away, are times they're showing their true nature. It seems common in the Charlotte family that the fear of going against Big Mom pushes them to the point of being someone they're not, and we can see the total psychological abuse she puts her children through. Another tactic of Big Mom's extreme abuse and manipulation, which is also something Judge does with his children, is separating her kids from their second biological parent. For Lola and Chiffon, she refused to allow them to see their father, and we know of no other biological fathers within the Charlotte family. So the Charlottes alone show us the themes of family abuse and the pressure of blood family ties. Big Mom having multiple methods, whether consciously done or not, to control and exploit her children. This has ruined many of her kids mentally, Lola being in complete denial of her mother's ways, with Pudding and Katakuri doing their best to receive her approval. From Big Mom's family, we see one side of blood family abuse and the different outcomes it can have on individuals. But I think we should now look into the second half. This second half, of course, being Sanji, the Vinsmokes, and Germa 66. Similar to Big Mom, Judge had done the exact same thing in removing his children from their second parent. While not as extreme as Big Mom, he separated his kids from their mother best he could. He saw Sora as a bad influence on them, especially with Sanji, and this is a common tactic to have total control over children and their lives. Judge's mental and verbal abuse, in fact, was extremely severe. He completely despised who Sanji was, calling him useless and weak, and heavily encouraged his siblings to pick on him. The Vinsmoke household had a complete hierarchy, with Judge being the leader, so anything he said was mimicked by Sanji's brothers. Sora had absolutely no power, not with what Judge did or decided for their kids, to the point Sora even poisoned herself just to gain some control over her own and her children's lives. Due to the lack of respect she received from Judge, she also received none from Ichiji, Niji, or Yonji. Reiju had a lot of love for her mother, and didn't agree with most of what Judge was doing, but overall couldn't rely on her for protection or change. Sanji, of course, loved Sora very much, but was looked down upon for it, and was even punished for grieving over her death.
こんなところにいたのか。
お父さん。
死者に花を手向ける心など我が子には必要ない。
Sanji overall was the runt of the household. We see in a few scenes that Reiju was disturbed by how Sanji was being treated. But even though she didn't hurt him herself, she still laughed along with her brothers at his abuse. Judge was an extremely powerful figure in their lives, and it's very possible that Reiju didn't want to be the target of harassment herself. She only helped Sanji behind her father's back, never intervening when the actual beating was happening, and continued to hide from Judge even as Sanji was running away. Overall, Judge was introduced as an incredibly daunting man. Not only is our first look of him a frame hanging in Sanji's room, showing him with the severed heads of defeated kings, but his presence alone is intimidating. We never see his whole face, always covered by a mask even in front of his own children. But he is also noticeably huge. Judge is, literally and figuratively, always looking down on Sanji. He's consistently a looming threat, and Judge's stature alone shows the power he has over Sanji. It doesn't matter how much time has passed, nor does it matter how old Sanji is now. He's still like a kid in front of Judge. This also reflects in his reaction to seeing Ichiji and Niji again. Sanji visibly shaking and sweating before having to face them for the first time in years. It feels as if he's having a panic attack, desperately trying to calm himself before dinner. And the abuse he's gone through as a child is prevalent in his mind. With the Vinsmokes, he seems to be trapped in an eternal moment in time. And even though he's an adult who's fought off powerful foes, he trembles in the face of his father and brothers. That mental space of no matter how old you get, your abusers will always hold power over you is completely portrayed in Sanji's entire character. He hasn't seen his blood family in over a decade, but just hearing the name Vinsmoke gives him the anxiety sweats and shakes like nothing else. Sanji was also a child that was desperate to grow up as fast as he could, this being the reason why he started smoking at such a young age. While having nothing but adults around him at the Baratier could contribute to this, his Vinsmoke backstory adds a whole new layer. He's sick of being seen as a child, of having the helplessness a child possesses, and it's very probable this is due to the fact he still feels like a child. Judge makes him feel completely helpless, makes him feel powerless, and he ran to the East Blue because that was the only escape he had from Judge. There's also a heartbreaking moment Sanji has as he's fighting Judge, where Sanji talks to himself, asking little Sanji if Judge is deserving of any respect due to being his biological parent. He continues on to say that there's not a single good memory he has of Judge, and remembers the suffering he went through as a child.
一つ聞いていいか。生みの親ってそんなに偉えのか。お前はあいつにいい思い出なんて一つも持ってねえよな。
Here, Sanji is trying to disconnect himself from his past, saying little Sanji suffered, as if this weren't himself. It's genuinely painful, Sanji's agony in wanting some control and power over his biological father, having him separate himself from his child self. After all, it was Sanji who suffered, the trauma Judge put him through affecting him to that day, and he's struggling greatly to not see it in that way. Circling back to his brothers, Ichiji, Niji, and Yonji, these three are a must to talk about in terms of the Vinsmoke family. We're told that these three brothers have no emotion, that they were born as monsters with zero empathy, and it's easy to believe. Reiju herself became somewhat distant emotionally due to these three, having to hide her emotion from her father to be the soldier he wanted her to be. But I question if the three brothers truly are emotionless. After all, we see Yonji helping a small creature to pick a grape. This is an act of compassion in itself. We see Niji feeling rage and jealousy over Sanji protecting the German Kingdom's cook Vinsmoke Cosette. And we see Ichiji displaying possible fear in front of Katakuri when he overpowers him. While it's true this could just be Oda forgetting that these three should be completely emotionless, I believe it's meant to be a subtle indication of their own emotions still existing somewhere deep down. After all, if the poison worked on Sanji, who's to say it didn't at least somewhat affect the other three? There's no excuse for how these three treated Sanji, their physical mistreatment towards him discomforting to watch. But there's something we need to remember here. Ichiji, Niji, and Yonji are all victims of Judge 2, in the exact same way Reiju and Sanji are. These are kids who were stripped of their humanity, being born without ever having the choice to be anything else. And I think that is an insanely cruel life to live. They did anything Judge would say. They saw bullying Sanji gave them their father's approval, and Judge was only truly happy with all his children once Sanji was gone. Judge is the true monster here, not Ichiji, Niji, or Yonji, but the man who conditioned them to be this way. Judge created a household where he was in complete control, and he was the epicenter of the abuse Sanji and every other member of his family received. Reiju never found the strength to stand up to him due to how terrified she was of him, and Ichiji, Niji, and Yonji picked on Sanji solely because of their father's disapproval of him. It was a toxic cycle the Vinsmoke children had been put in, and a healthy relationship could never bloom between these siblings due to their father's meddling. And I think the scene of Sanji disowning Judge as his father is a testament to this, because he doesn't bring up any of his brothers. He's traumatized with how his brothers treated him, but he doesn't seem to see anything as their fault. Judge is the one he focuses on to overpower and remove from his life, and Judge is the one who doesn't get a single moment of redemption. On the other hand, his brothers all receive a small moment of vindication, Sanji being saved by the three of them as he runs away with Luffy. This scene completely mirrors his first escape as a child, but instead of only Reiju pushing him to chase his life and dreams, it's now all his siblings. Sanji shares a genuinely sweet moment with Niji here. Niji lightheartedly complaining about how troublesome of a brother Sanji is, before smiling and throwing him to safety.
生きてるかってき損ないて俺たちに迷惑しかかけねえな助けろなんて頼んでねえよバカあばよでき損ない
Yes, he calls him a failure, but it's no longer in that condescending way he used when they were kids. Sanji, of course, doesn't really know how to feel about this, as one naturally wouldn't in that situation. But we can see here, even if it is slight, his brothers do feel some form of care for Sanji, especially Niji. I assume the connection with Niji is because Sanji is directly his younger brother, but this continues to allude to the idea that his brothers aren't complete monsters. As said previously, it is no excuse for how they treated Sanji, but the system set up within the Vinsmoke home made it so they could show no care towards Sanji. Ichiji, Niji, and Yonji are all products of family abuse, especially from Judge. It's taken to the extreme, but Oda giving them all that slight moment of redemption while giving Judge none speaks for itself in how he's trying to portray the horrors of the Vinsmoke family. And finally, if we go back to Judge quite literally looking down on Sanji, this is why, when Sanji eventually confronts Judge about who his real father is, he tears Judge down. He brings his biological father, his abuser, to his level, refusing to look up at him. This is a moment of Sanji finally showing us Judge no longer has any power over him, that the support system he's received from Luffy and others has healed him enough to remove that feeling of helplessness towards his biological father, and Judge is forced to bend to Sanji's will. Even before this, as Sanji saves Judge from Big Mom's clutches, he glares down at Judge, who's staring up at at him and crying. Think about how juicy that is. For his entire life, Judge has hated Sanji because of the emotional crybaby he turned out to be. But now he's the one crying for his life as Sanji glares at him. It loops back around to the first scene we witness of Sanji's abuse, with Sanji asking for his father's help as Judge responds, "Why should I?" Sanji has no reason to help Judge, the man who abused him and scarred him for life, but he does so anyway. And why should he? Because it's the right thing to do. It's what kind people do, and Judge is forced to face the child he tried to ruin, who has saved him because of the attributes he claimed were disgraceful. However, kindness aside, why would Sanji ever save the person who made his life a living hell? After all, even he claims it to be unreasonable. But this is a result of blood family ties. That bond of blood, as much as one wants to let it go, it's hard. He hates Judge. He hates what his brothers have done to him. He doesn't even see them as family, but he can't let them die. He doesn't expect to receive any respect for his efforts, especially not from Judge. Yet it's still something he can't bear to see happen. Their relationship with blood family is complicated, and there's no doubt in my mind Sanji felt guilty for feeling the way he did. But it's realistic in its premise. In the end, this is still his blood father, his blood brother, and his blood sister. These are still people he shares a connection with, and he can't let that go. So while he can stand over the man that he denounces as his father, he still doesn't have the wish nor the want to see them die. And there's no wonder why Reiju calls her brother the kindest person in the world. It was also incredibly relieving that Judge received not an ounce of redemption, not even till the very last second. In fact, Judge doubles down his hatred for Sanji, amplifying the monster he truly is. But Luffy is there to essentially hold Sanji's hand throughout it. And once again, it feels realistic. Judge will forever see Sanji as a failure, no matter what he does. But Sanji's worth is now no longer tied to his biological father's approval. Through this arc, Sanji has found worth outside of that, as Katakuri and Pudding also have in regards to their own parents' approval. Overall, Sanji's story is a success story. It's a tale of how this child managed to overcome the abuse of his family and his father after years of neglect. And every single character who receives attention during this arc is exactly the same. From Katakuri being defeated, to Pudding receiving genuine kindness, to Reiju and her brothers pushing Sanji to chase his dreams. In one way or another, they all managed to break from the chains their parents trapped them in. Whole Cake Island was fantastic at intertwining the themes of blood relation and family abuse throughout the entire arc, in a deeply emotional, passionate, and respectable way, with Sanji being the main focus of it all. After all, such ideas can be difficult to present without seeming unnecessary or tasteless, but I'd say Whole Cake Island did an insanely fantastic job at it, and I hold a lot of love for this arc because of that. There's plenty of other smaller things that also elevate this arc up to the masterpiece it is, such as Sanji using his passion for cooking to save his crew and biological family instead of any form of violence, or Big Mom's entire reasoning for why she has such a large family in the first place. But that would make me sidetrack from the main themes I've focused on within this video, so I left them out for now. And who knows, maybe I'll do a full arc dissection in the future with not just Whole Cake Island, but other arcs as well. And with that, thanks for watching. As you can all probably guess, Whole Cake Island is one of my favorite arcs, and I swear it's not just because I'm a Sanji fan, although that definitely plays a part here. If there are any characters or themes within this arc that especially hooked you, let me know. I found this arc was an emotional ride for tons of people, not just because of Sanji, and I'm always interested to hear the opinions of others in regards to this series. Just a quick reminder that I do have a Patreon, and if you would like to support me there, I'd really appreciate it. However, I know that not everyone can support me in that way, and just watching and sharing these videos does more for me than you can imagine. If there's anything you'd like to see me cover, One Piece or otherwise, please let me know, and I'll see you in whatever I make next. See ya!